They sold my dream car while I was on a business trip. At first, I thought it was some kind of twisted joke until my mother's smug smile told me otherwise. Thanks to your car, Lily is finally living her best life in Dubai, she sneered, as if my years of sacrifice were nothing but spare change for her favourite daughter. My chest tightened, but I couldn't help chuckling. She snapped instantly. What's so funny? Her grin froze when I whispered the truth. Because the car they sold wasn't mine anymore. And their nightmare was just beginning. The first time I saw the Tesla Roadster gleaming under the showroom lights, it felt like touching freedom itself. Every deal I had closed, every late night at the office, every sacrifice I made in my 30s had finally taken shape in a machine that belonged only to me. When I drove it home, my hands shook with a strange mix of pride and disbelief. For once, I wasn't Emily the caretaker, Emily the dependable one, Emily the shadow behind Lily's glittering spotlight. I was simply Emily, and this car was proof that I could build a life of my own. When I parked in front of my parents' house, they rushed outside with practiced smiles. My father patted the hood as if blessing a sacred relic, but I caught the flicker of disapproval in his eyes. It's impressive, he muttered, the words catching like thorns in his throat. My mother adjusted her pearl necklace and forced a laugh. Well, I hope it doesn't make you reckless, dear. Lily always said flashy cars attract the wrong kind of people. Lily, of course, didn't waste a second. She whipped out her phone, turned on the camera, and went live. Look what my sister bought, she chirped, her voice dripping with sugary mockery. It's gorgeous, but honestly, she drives like an accountant. The comments flooded in instantly, laughing emojis, strangers agreeing, at least the car looks good, even if she doesn't. I stood there half smiling, pretending not to notice the sting. What the live stream didn't show was the silence that followed once the camera went off. Lily leaned against the car, running her manicured nails along the paint like it already belonged to her. You should let me take it for a spin sometime, she said, not as a request, but as a declaration. I shook my head gently. It's not just a car, Lily. It's mine. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic. That night, at our weekly family dinner, the air was thick with the smell of roasted lamb and unspoken expectations. My parents exchanged glances, the way they always did before delivering bad news, wrapped in silk. Finally, my mother cleared her throat. Lily has been under so much stress since the breakup. We were thinking a little getaway might restore her spirit. Lily sighed theatrically, pushing her food around her plate. It's been really hard, Emily. You wouldn't understand what heartbreak does to a creative soul. She had dated a photographer for 3 months and now spoke as if she'd survived a war. I raised an eyebrow. A getaway? Like a spa weekend? My father chuckled without humour. More like something special, a luxury retreat. Bali, perhaps, or Dubai, somewhere that will truly heal her. I set my fork down slowly, the taste of lamb turning sour in my mouth. That sounds expensive. My mother leaned forward, eyes sharp beneath her polished facade. Emily, you're the responsible one. You've always known money isn't everything. Your sister needs this for her mental health. A car is just metal and wires. But Lily is flesh and blood. There it was, the gaslighting I had grown up with, polished and weaponized. My achievements were trivial, her indulgences sacred. I felt the weight pressing on my chest. The old familiar role they carved for me, the provider, the sacrificial lamb. For a moment I faltered. The car was just a car, wasn't it? Maybe I was being selfish. Maybe this was my chance to finally be the good daughter they always wanted me to be. The guilt clawed at me, even though I knew the logic was poisoned. Lily smirked from across the table, her wine glass tilted casually in her hand. Come on, Em, don't be so uptight. Imagine the content I could create from a trip like that. It could change my career. Her words dug into me, not because of their arrogance, but because she truly believed them. She believed my blood, sweat, and tears existed to fuel her fantasies. I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. We'll talk about it later. The dinner ended with laughter that wasn't mine and hugs that felt like shackles. As I drove home, headlights slicing through the dark, I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror. My smile had cracked, replaced by something rawer, more uncertain. For years I had built walls of independence, convinced that success could shield me from their favoritism. But tonight, as their words echoed in my head, I realized something chilling. Those walls were made of glass, and they were already starting to crack. The week after that dinner, I boarded a plane for a business trip to Chicago. Work had always been my safe haven, the place where logic triumphed over manipulation. Yet, even as I sat in meetings and delivered presentations, an unease tugged at the back of my mind. Something about the way my parents had spoken at dinner lingered like smoke in my lungs. I tried to shake it off, telling myself they wouldn't dare cross the line, but deep down, I knew better. 3 days into the trip, I got a call from Mrs. Dawson, the elderly neighbour who had lived across the street since my childhood. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Emily dear, I didn't want to alarm you, but I noticed your car is gone. I saw a tow truck pull it out of your garage yesterday." My hand froze on the desk. "Are you sure?" "Oh yes, your father was there. He signed some papers and watched them load it up." "I thought you knew." The floor tilted beneath me. I thanked her quickly and hung up, my pulse hammering in my ears. My car, my dream, my freedom vanished without a single word from me. I opened Instagram with shaking fingers, and there it was. Lily's face filled the screen, bronzed under the desert sun, oversized sunglasses perched on her nose. The caption read, "Living my best life in Dubai. Thanks, sis. Blessed." Thousands of likes, gushing comments, queen energy, so jealous, sister goals, sister goals. My throat tightened. The bile of betrayal burned hotter than I'd ever felt before. But even then, I didn't know the depth of their betrayal. That caption, that smug smile, it was only the beginning. When I returned to New York, I drove straight from the airport to my parents' house. The garage was empty, a hollow space mocking me. Inside, my parents sat at the dining table as if nothing had happened. My mother poured tea calmly while my father read the paper. "Where's my car?" My voice was low, but it sliced the air like a blade. My mother didn't even flinch. "We sold it. Lily needed support, and as her family, we gave it." "You what?" My father lowered his paper slowly. "It was a practical decision, Emily. You can always buy another car. Your sister's well-being, on the other hand, is priceless." The words hit me harder than any physical blow. "You sold my car without my permission? Do you even hear yourselves?" Lily's voice floated from the staircase above. Relax, Em. It's not like you were driving it every day. At least my trip is inspiring thousands online. You should be proud. I turned to face them all, trembling, not from weakness, but from rage, so sharp it carved through my chest. You don't see me as your daughter. You see me as your ATM. That car was my dream, my hard work, my life, and you gutted it for her vacation selfies. For a moment, silence fell. Even Lily's smirk wavered. But then my mother sighed, as if I were a spoiled child throwing a tantrum. Emily, darling, money comes and goes. Family is forever. You'll understand when you learn to be less selfish. The gaslight flared, blinding and suffocating. I couldn't breathe in that house another second. Without a word, I stormed out, the slam of the door echoing my broken heartbeat. Back in my apartment, the silence was unbearable. I dropped my suitcase on the floor and sank onto the couch. Tears burned my eyes, spilling faster than I could wipe them away. The walls closed in, suffocating with memories of every time I'd been overlooked, every time Lily had been lifted on a pedestal while I was told to be responsible. For years I had swallowed it. For years I had believed being strong meant being silent. But now, staring at the void left by my stolen dream, I realized silence had only made me pray. I cried until the city lights blurred through my window, until exhaustion left me hollow. And then, through the haze, my eyes landed on the laptop resting on my desk. I wiped my face, stood, and opened it with trembling hands. On the screen, a single folder sat on the desktop, one I had created months ago but never touched. Plan B. I clicked it open, my breath steadying with every passing second. Inside were documents, contracts, contingency plans I had drawn up in a moment of foresight. Legal safeguards, financial backups, proof of ownership. I had prepared for the possibility that my family might try to exploit me again. And as the files lit up the screen, a new fire ignited in my chest. They thought they had won, thought they had stripped me bare. But they had no idea that their betrayal had only awakened something far more dangerous inside me. This wasn't the end, it was the opening move. The next morning, I forced myself back into my parents' house, determined to hear their explanation face to face. The air smelled of brewed coffee and polished wood, too clean, too ordinary for the storm brewing in my chest. My mother greeted me with a smile that wasn't kind, but triumphant. She held her teacup as if it were a crown. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with pride, "thanks to your car, Lily is finally living like a princess. She deserved it after everything she's been through." The words struck like nails driven into my skin. I felt my eyes burn, but instead of tears spilling, I pressed them back, curling into a smile that was colder than ice. My lips parted and I chuckled, softly at first. Then with a bite sharp enough to silence the room, my mother frowned. "What's so funny?" I leaned forward, my voice steady, almost too calm. "Funny? That you believe you've won? That you believe you could take something from me without consequence." Lily appeared in the doorway, phone in hand, her cheeks flushed from another sun-soaked video call with her followers. "Oh my God, Em, are you still mad? Seriously, let it go. I'm turning your sacrifice into content. People love it. I'm making us famous." Her arrogance made my chest tighten, but I didn't break. Not yet. Instead, I reached into my bag and pulled out a thin folder, placing it carefully on the table between us. "You might have sold the car," I said, "but you sold something that wasn't yours. That Tesla, It hasn't belonged to me for months. I transferred ownership to my company's trust fund, which means the sale you executed was fraud." The silence was deafening. My father's paper slipped from his hands. My mother's face paled, and for the first time, Lily looked uncertain, her smug grin faltering. "You're lying," my mother whispered, though her voice quivered. I opened the folder, revealing the stamped contracts, notarized and sealed. "This isn't a game. What you did isn't just betrayal. It's illegal." For a moment, I let them drown in the reality of their crime. Then I stood, gathering the folder back into my bag. "Enjoy Lily's trip. Because when the company contacts you, when the lawyers come knocking, you'll realize you didn't just steal from me. You stole from something much bigger than me." I walked out before they could respond, the slam of the door behind me echoing like a verdict. But as the adrenaline drained from my body, the weight of what had just unfolded dragged me down. Back in my apartment, the walls felt closer than ever. My chest heaved as though the air itself was suffocating me. Yes, I had outsmarted them. Yes, I had proof. But the victory tasted hollow. Because the truth that cut deeper than fraud or stolen property was this: my family had chosen to betray me, knowingly, willingly. They had decided I was expendable, a bank account with a face. The car was just the symbol. The real loss was the love I once believed might still exist. I collapsed onto the couch, tears spilling freely now, unrestrained. Every sob dragged me further into the darkness I had avoided for years. Images from the past flashed like cruel slideshows behind my eyes. I was 12 again, standing in the kitchen, clutching the letter that announced my scholarship to a prestigious private school. My heart had soared as I presented it to my mother, expecting pride. Instead, her face hardened. "Emily, stop bragging. Don't make Lily feel small." Later that same week, Lily had handed her a crooked drawing of a flower. My mother cooed, hugging her tightly, "You're so talented, sweetheart. You'll be an artist one day." I had stood there, the scholarship letter trembling in my hand, learning my first lesson. Achievement meant nothing when weighed against Lily's mediocrity. The memories blurred with the present, the pattern too obvious to ignore. They had always dismissed me, always belittled me, always chosen her. And no matter how much I achieved, no matter how high I climbed, I had never been more than the shadow behind Lily's light. My tears slowed, leaving a raw ache in their wake. I wiped my face with trembling fingers and stared out the window at the city lights. The truth was brutal, undeniable. My family had never been my family, not in the way I needed. They had been my jailers, binding me to a role I never chose. And yet, beneath the despair, a faint ember glowed. The folder labelled Plan B still sat on my desk, its edges sharp against the dim light. My parents believed I was broken, that I would retreat into silence as I always had, but they didn't know the full scope of the safeguards I had built. For now, though, I let the night swallow me. I curled on the couch, clutching a pillow, as if it could replace the affection I had been denied. My breath slowed, the exhaustion overtaking me, dragging me into uneasy sleep. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but one truth had crystallized in the ashes of betrayal. The girl who had once begged for love was gone. What would rise in her place? My family wasn't ready for that answer. The morning light cut across my apartment like a blade, sharp and unforgiving. I hadn't slept much. My eyes still burned, my head throbbed, but something inside me had shifted during the night. Grief had drained me hollow, but beneath the emptiness, anger stirred. Not the wild, reckless anger that destroys, but the focused kind, the kind that reshapes. I opened my laptop, intending to review the trust documents again, when a notification blinked on the screen. My heart lurched as I saw it. An email alert about a loan application under my name. The subject line chilled me. Approval pending. $250,000. Hands trembling, I clicked it open. There, in black and white, was an application filled with my details, my social security number, my work history, my address. And at the bottom, the signature wasn't mine. It was Lily's attempt at forging my name. For a moment, the room spun. Selling my car wasn't enough. They were trying to bury me under debt, to drain not just my possessions, but my identity. If this loan went through, my reputation in the financial world would collapse. My career, my stability, everything I had built could vanish overnight. I slammed the laptop shut, my breath ragged. The truth settled like fire in my veins. If I don't act now, my life will be ruined. I gripped the edge of the desk, forcing myself to steady. Rage pulsed through me, but I would not let it turn me into them. I couldn't strike blindly, couldn't descend into their chaos. My fight had to be clean, deliberate, undeniable. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about survival and about reclaiming the dignity they had stolen. I reopened the laptop and went to the folder marked Plan B. Inside, another file glowed, security footage from the Tesla's hidden dash cam. Months ago, I had installed it for safety reasons, never imagining it would capture my parents signing fraudulent papers. Now those videos were my shield and my sword. The faces on the screen stared back at me, my father's hand scrawling a false signature, my mother nodding with approval. Watching it broke something in me, but it also clarified everything. This was no misunderstanding, no mistake. It was deliberate, premeditated. I picked up the phone and called the one person I trusted outside of work, Daniel Hughes, a lawyer I'd once partnered with on a corporate fraud case. His voice was calm, measured, the voice of someone who had pulled people back from the edge before. "Emily, you did the right thing by calling me," he said, after hearing everything. "With the contracts you've kept and this footage, you have ironclad evidence. But you need to be strategic. Don't rush to expose them. Let them tighten the noose themselves." His advice struck me with clarity. Yes, if I went public now, they'd spin the story, paint me as the cold, ungrateful daughter. But if I gave them enough rope, they'd reveal their greed for the world to see. That night, I drafted my first move. An email, not paragraphs, not explanations, just a subject line, stark and impossible to ignore. "Let's talk about fraud." The body of the message was blank. I wanted them to feel the silence, to taste the weight of their own fear. I hovered over the send button for a long moment, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat. Then, with one sharp exhale, I clicked. Somewhere across town, I imagined their faces tightening, panic flaring in their eyes. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one left in the dark. They were. But as the adrenaline eased, I let myself sink into the couch, pulling a blanket around my shoulders. For all my strength, I was still human. Tears still came, soft this time, not of weakness but release. I whispered into the quiet as though reminding myself, I won't destroy them. I'll defend myself, that's enough. Outside, the city pulsed with indifferent light. Inside, my plan was taking shape, sharp as glass and just as dangerous. Tomorrow, they would realize the game had changed, and I would no longer be their pawn. The invitation came in the form of a message I sent to the family group chat. Dinner. Tomorrow. My apartment. Mandatory. No explanations, no warmth. Just the demand. For years, I had been the one obeying, bending, softening the edges of myself to fit their comfort. But not this time. When they arrived, the atmosphere was thick with suspicion. My father entered first, jaw tight, eyes scanning my living room as though expecting a trap. My mother followed, her pearl necklace gleaming, a mask of indifference that didn't quite hide the tension in her lips. Lily sauntered in last, phone in hand, already live streaming to her dwindling audience. "Family dinner at M's place," she chirped, panning the camera toward me. "Let's see if she finally learned how to host." I ignored the sting. Instead, I dimmed the lights and turned on the projector I had set up against the wall. The screen flickered to life. At first, they looked confused until the images began to play. There was my father, pen in hand, signing my name on the Tesla sale contract. My mother's voice followed, calm and approving. "It's fine, she won't know." The footage was clear, undeniable. The room froze. My mother's teacup clattered against the table, spilling liquid across the polished wood. Her face drained of colour. My father surged forward, fists clenched. "How dare you record us?" Lily stopped streaming mid-sentence, her phone lowering as her mouth fell open. The mask of superiority she always wore shattered. I let the silence hang, my heart steady for the first time in years. Then I spoke, voice low but certain. "I didn't lose my car. You lost everything." Their reactions collided like a storm. My mother stammered excuses. My father's anger burned. And Lily, sweet Lily, looked for the first time like a child caught with her hand in the fire. "You wouldn't take us to court," my mother whispered, desperation creeping into her tone. "We're family." The cliffhanger I had prepared arrived on cue. I gathered the folder of documents, tucked it under my arm, and walked to the door. I didn't scream, didn't argue. I simply opened it and looked back once. "I don't need to take you to court," I said softly. "You'll destroy yourselves." And then I left them in the silence of their own unravelling. The collapse came faster than even I anticipated. Within a week, the trust's lawyers contacted my parents, demanding repayment for the fraudulent sale. The company threatened to press charges unless the funds were returned immediately. My father's pride cracked. His once sterling reputation in the community began to rot. Meanwhile, Lily's world of filters and hashtags imploded. Screenshots of the Tesla fraud circulated online, linked to her Dubai posts. Former fans turned on her, comments flooding her profile. Golden Child exposed trended within hours. Brands that once courted her with deals now cut ties, leaving her scrambling, begging followers to believe her innocence. I didn't need to lift a finger. Their greed had done the work for me. And yet, victory wasn't the pure triumph I imagined. A few days later, I sat alone in a quiet cafe, the aroma of espresso clinging to the air. Outside, people hurried along the street, living lives untouched by betrayal. I wrapped my hands around a warm cup, staring into the dark surface. I had won. The evidence was irrefutable. The world finally saw the truth. But the emptiness inside me remained, heavier than ever. Because behind every headline, behind every hashtag, were people who should have loved me. People who chose envy and exploitation instead. My reflection in the cafe window was tired, eyes rimmed red from sleepless nights. I tilted my head back and let out a sigh, the weight of my choice pressing against my ribs. Justice had been served, yes, but peace, that was still far away. As I rose to leave, a woman at the next table gave me a sympathetic glance. I managed a faint smile, though my chest ached. Walking out into the night, I realised that victories built on ashes still left soot on your skin. The storm that once threatened to bury me gradually became the wind that cleared the air. Within days, news of the fraud spread beyond the neighbourhood. Former friends of my parents whispered in circles once loyal to them. Invitations to church committees, charity events, and country club dinners disappeared. My father's voice, once commanding in those spaces, was now absent. My mother, who had thrived on appearances, found herself cornered by pitying stares and pointed questions. As for Lily, her world collapsed in pixels. The hashtag #GoldenChildExposed became a spectacle, her follower count dropping by the thousands every day. Brands released statements cutting ties, claiming they did not condone fraudulent behaviour. She posted tearful videos begging people to understand, but the internet is rarely forgiving. Her kingdom of curated filters had crumbled into rubble. In contrast, my own circle widened. Colleagues who had quietly admired my resilience now reached out. "Emily, I'm so sorry for what you went through," one co-worker said after a meeting. Another sent a note. "We always knew you carried more than anyone realised. Respect to you for standing tall." Their words were a balm I hadn't known I needed. Friends who had drifted away because of my family's shadow began to return. They told me I had been too hard on myself, that they saw me as more than the dutiful daughter. For the first time, I wasn't seen as cold or distant. I was seen as someone who had survived, someone who deserved compassion. And yet, amid the validation, I didn't feel the urge to gloat. Their downfall didn't need my applause. It was enough to know the truth had surfaced. Justice wasn't about dragging them lower. It was about freeing myself from the chains they'd wrapped around me for decades. Weeks passed before I even thought about buying another car. The Tesla had been more than metal, more than speed. It had been a symbol of who I wanted to be. Losing it had hurt, but I no longer needed a replacement to prove myself. What I needed was space. So I rented a small convertible and set out on a road trip with no fixed destination. The open highway stretched before me, the wind threading through my hair, the hum of the engine reminding me that life was still mine to steer. I stopped at roadside diners, shared meals with strangers who became friends, and slept under skies unpolluted by city lights. One night in Vermont, I camped beside a lake. A family in the next campsite invited me to share their fire. The parents spoke warmly, their children laughed freely, and no one asked me what I could give them. No one measured my worth against someone else's. I sat there, the flames crackling, and for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged, not because of blood, but because of kindness. This was my chosen family, people who respected me, not for what I could provide, but for who I was. It wasn't grand, it wasn't showy, but it was real. As I continued driving, miles rolling beneath my tyres, I reflected on everything that had happened. The betrayal had cut me open, but through that wound I found clarity. My parents' approval had been a mirage I chased too long. Lily's jealousy had been a chain I let bind me. Their collapse wasn't my victory, it was simply the natural consequence of their choices. The true victory was the silence in my chest where once the ache lived. It was the peace of knowing I didn't need their love to validate mine. I pulled over at a scenic overlook, the valley below bathed in sunset. I stepped out, leaned against the hood, and breathed in air that felt new. The sweetest revenge wasn't exposing them, I whispered to myself, the wind carrying my words into the fading light. It was reclaiming my freedom, my story, and my peace. As the last rays of sun melted into the horizon, I couldn't help but wonder if others trapped in families like mine were watching, listening somehow. Would they see my story and believe they too could walk away? Would they dare to choose peace over obligation? And then a final question lingered like a soft echo in the air, one I couldn't answer for anyone but myself. If it were you, would you leave behind the family that broke you? Or would you stay chained, calling it love?